You're listening to the Literary Deep Dive. Each episode takes you beyond plot summaries into the heart of classic literature, exploring historical context, literary techniques, themes, cultural significance, and how these works have shaped our understanding of the human experience. This is a literary exploration that enriches your reading, sharpens your analysis, and deepens your appreciation of the written word.
Welcome back to the Literary Deep Dive. I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition, and this is our fourth episode examining S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. Over our first three episodes, we've explored the historical and cultural context that shaped this novel, examined its sophisticated structural design, and analyzed the memorable characters that bring the story to life. If you're just joining us, those earlier episodes provide an essential foundation for today's discussion. Today we're examining what many consider the soul of the novel, its themes. We'll explore how Hinton addresses fundamental questions about class conflict, family loyalty, violence, and the search for identity. We'll look at how these themes developed throughout the narrative, why they mattered in 1967, and why they remain relevant today. This kind of thematic analysis is crucial for writing strong essays, leading meaningful class discussions, and understanding what elevates a good story into great literature. This analysis comes from our comprehensive University Teaching Edition study guides, available on Amazon. These guides include everything we discuss, plus theme charts, discussion questions, essay prompts, and teaching resources. Search University Teaching Edition on Amazon to explore our complete catalog. Let's dive into the thematic heart of The Outsiders, the central thematic concerns. The Outsiders explores fundamental questions about social justice, individual dignity, and human connection that transcend its 1960s context to address enduring concerns about economic inequality, social prejudice, and the challenges of maintaining moral integrity within unjust social systems. At the center of everything is class conflict. The division between socks and greasers drives the novel's exploration of how economic inequality creates systematic barriers to social mobility while generating misunderstandings and hostility between social groups that actually share common humanity and similar needs for respect, security, and meaningful opportunities. This isn't just background detail, it's the fundamental tension that makes everything else in the novel possible. Individual worth versus social perception emerges as equally crucial. Through character development, Hinton challenges stereotypes and assumptions based on economic status, physical appearance, and cultural background. The novel illustrates how social prejudice can obscure individual complexity while advocating for recognition of human dignity and potential regardless of economic circumstances or social position. Family loyalty and love form the thematic foundation for character motivation and moral development. The Curtis family's struggle to maintain unity despite external challenges illustrates both the strength of family bonds and the social conditions that threaten family stability. This theme provides the emotional core that makes readers care deeply about what happens to these characters. The search for identity and belonging drives character development as characters struggle to maintain personal values while meeting group expectations and social pressures that may conflict with individual moral reasoning and personal aspirations. This tension between authenticity and conformity speaks directly to adolescent experience while addressing universal human concerns. Violence and its consequences receive extensive exploration through character experience, examining both the defensive necessity and destructive potential of aggressive responses to social conflict. The novel analyzes how social conditions contribute to youth violence while exploring alternative approaches to conflict resolution, never simply condemning or endorsing violence, but examining its complex reality. The loss of innocence through exposure to social injustice and personal tragedy provides a framework for character growth. The novel explores how individuals can maintain hope and moral integrity despite disappointing and traumatic experiences, striking a balance between realistic acknowledgement of social problems and optimistic belief in human potential for goodness and positive change. Class conflict and social justice. Let's examine class conflict more deeply, as it permeates every aspect of the novel. The division between socks and greasers represents broader patterns of American social stratification that affect individual life chances and community relationships. But Hinton's treatment is sophisticated. She doesn't present this as a simple economic difference, but as a complex web of privilege, prejudice, and misunderstanding. The socks have material advantages, certainly, but they also have social advantages, legal protection, cultural acceptability, and assumptions of worth and potential. When a greaser and a sock get in trouble, the system treats them differently. This isn't just unfair, it's systematically unjust, reflecting broader patterns that extend far beyond individual prejudice. What makes Hinton's treatment powerful is her refusal to demonize the socks entirely. Cherry Valance's character is crucial here. She demonstrates that privilege doesn't eliminate individual complexity or moral awareness. Her recognition of Ponyboy's worth, despite his social position, shows possibilities for understanding, while the ongoing violence illustrates the destructive power of systematic inequality. The novel's critique draws on democratic ideals and social reform traditions that advocate for equal opportunity and recognition of human worth, regardless of economic circumstances. There's an implicit faith in education and individual potential that reflects American democratic traditions, while the work simultaneously acknowledges systematic barriers that prevent realization of democratic promises for all community members. Philosophically, the novel explores social contract theory through its examination of community obligations and mutual responsibility. The contrast between gang loyalty and broader social alienation illustrates different forms of social organization and their effectiveness in meeting human needs for security and belonging. The greasers create their own social contract when the broader society fails them, but this alternative system has its own limitations and costs: family, identity, and belonging. Family loyalty operates on multiple levels in the novel. On the surface, it's about the Curtis brothers maintaining unity after their parents' death. But more deeply, it's about how economic pressure and social stress influence personal relationships and individual growth. The complexity of Derry and Ponyboy's relationship illustrates this beautifully. Derry's role as surrogate parent creates tension. He's too young, too stressed, and too burdened by responsibility to parent with the ease and confidence of an adult. Ponyboy misinterprets Derry's strictness as a lack of love. Their eventual reconciliation doesn't erase economic pressures, but it provides an emotional foundation that enables both to cope with continuing challenges. The search for identity intertwines with questions of belonging. Ponyboy embodies the tension between individual authenticity and group conformity. His intellectual interests and sensitivity distinguish him from typical gang members, creating internal conflict between personal identity and social expectations. The novel explores whether it's possible to maintain individual values while meeting group expectations, and suggests that this tension isn't necessarily something to be resolved, but something to be negotiated throughout life. The gang functions as an extended family, providing security and belonging that the broader society denies these working class youth. But gang membership also creates limitations, expectations of loyalty that may conflict with individual moral reasoning, pressure to conform to masculine ideals that may not fit personal temperament, and involvement in violence that may contradict personal values. Existentialist themes emerge here as characters confront moral choices requiring individual responsibility and authentic decision making despite social pressure. Characters must create meaning and identity through personal choice while accepting consequences of their actions and maintaining commitment to chosen values despite external opposition and internal uncertainty. Violence, innocence, and moral complexity. The novel's treatment of violence is remarkably nuanced for young adult literature. Violence isn't glorified, but neither is it simply condemned. Instead, Hinton examines its complex reality, sometimes defensive necessity, always destructive potential. Johnny's killing of Bob Sheldon represents the novel's most crucial exploration of violence and moral choice. It's clearly self-defense. Johnny saves Ponyboy's life, yet it transforms both characters from relatively innocent observers into active participants whose actions have life-altering consequences. The novel explores how quickly situations can escalate beyond control while examining whether violence, even in self-defense, can ever achieve true justice. The church fire sequence provides interesting counterpoint. Here violence gives way to heroism. Ponyboy and Johnny risk their lives to save children, revealing fundamental goodness that social prejudice had obscured. The irony is profound. Social outcasts become community heroes, challenging stereotypes while demonstrating human potential for courage and self-sacrifice that transcends economic circumstances. But the consequences remain tragic. Johnny's fatal injuries and subsequent death provide the novel's emotional climax, while examining themes of sacrifice and the meaning of life. His final words, "Stay gold," create a philosophical center for understanding loss of innocence and the challenge of maintaining idealism in a harsh world. Dallas's death following Johnny's provides an additional tragic dimension, illustrating the destructive potential of social alienation and emotional isolation. His inability to survive Johnny's loss reveals psychological fragility hidden beneath his tough exterior, while demonstrating the essential importance of love and connection for human survival. Without Johnny, Dallas loses his reason to keep fighting, to keep going. It's a devastating portrayal of how social isolation can be fatal. The loss of innocence theme develops from gradual awareness of social injustice to traumatic confrontation with mortality, ultimately achieving integration that maintains hope despite realistic understanding of social limitations. Ponyboy moves from protective naivety through painful disillusionment to mature acceptance that enables continued engagement and positive action. How themes develop and peak. Thematic development in The Outsiders follows Ponyboy's psychological journey from naive social observation to mature understanding. This isn't static. Themes evolve as Ponyboy's understanding deepens through direct experience with conflict, loss, and moral complexity. Social prejudice begins as an external reality that Ponyboy observes without fully understanding its systematic nature. Through his relationship with Cherry and subsequent events, This theme evolves into a sophisticated analysis of how economic inequality creates misunderstanding while recognizing possibilities for individual connection across social boundaries. Family loyalty evolves from unquestioned assumption to conscious choice. Early in the novel, Ponyboy takes his brother's love for granted while resenting their control. Through crisis and near loss, he develops a deeper understanding of their sacrifices and motivations, learning to appreciate their love despite surface tension. The theme evolves from simple emotional attachment to mature understanding of mutual responsibility and interdependence. Violence and its consequences develop from abstract concern to personal trauma. Initial acceptance of violence as an inevitable aspect of social life gives way to understanding of its psychological and social costs. The progression from street fights to Bob's death to Johnny's sacrifice to Dallas's suicide escalates both dramatic intensity and thematic complexity. Several key moments represent thematic peaks. The church fire creates a climax for heroism and individual worth. Social outcasts becoming community heroes, challenging stereotypes, and demonstrating human potential for courage. Johnny's death represents the emotional and thematic peak of loss and sacrifice. His final words providing a philosophical center that influences subsequent resolution. Dallas's death provides a peak for social alienation and its destructive consequences, showing how loss of connection can overwhelm individual capacity for survival. The trial proceedings create a thematic climax for justice and institutional fairness. The eventual dismissal of charges offers hope for individual justice while acknowledging ongoing challenges requiring continued vigilance. This resolution is carefully calibrated, enough closure to satisfy dramatically, enough ambiguity to remain realistic. Why these themes matter today. What makes The Outsiders remarkable is how its themes remain urgent and relevant more than 50 years after publication. Contemporary American society continues grappling with economic inequality and social mobility, making the novel's concerns increasingly relevant for understanding current debates about educational opportunity, social justice, and community development. Youth violence and school safety remain pressing social concerns that benefit from the novel's nuanced analysis of how social conditions contribute to aggressive behavior while maintaining focus on individual responsibility. The work's exploration of how poverty, family stress, and social alienation create conditions for violence without excusing it provides a valuable framework for contemporary prevention efforts. Educational inequality and achievement gaps continue affecting working class students, making the novel's advocacy for intellectual development and cultural engagement significant for supporting expanded educational access. Ponyboy's academic success, despite difficult circumstances, offers hope, while the broader context acknowledges systematic barriers many students face. Family structure diversity and economic pressure on family stability create ongoing challenges that connect to the novel's exploration of how family loyalty enables individual development despite difficult circumstances. The Curtis family struggle resonates with contemporary families navigating economic stress, single-parent households, and kinship care arrangements. Social media and technology have transformed youth culture while maintaining fundamental concerns about identity formation, peer pressure, and social belonging that the novel explores. The work's treatment of authentic versus performed identity, Ponyboy's struggle to be himself while meeting gang expectations, remains relevant for understanding contemporary adolescent experience in digital spaces where performance and authenticity constantly intersect. Mental health awareness and trauma-informed approaches benefit from the novel's realistic portrayal of how adverse experiences affect individual development. Ponyboy's temporary emotional withdrawal and difficulty processing traumatic events represent authentic trauma responses, while his eventual recovery demonstrates possibilities for healing through supportive relationships. The novel addresses universal human experiences that transcend specific cultural and historical contexts. The search for identity and belonging represents a fundamental aspect of adolescent development across all cultures. Love and loyalty within family and friendship relationships address universal human needs for connection and mutual support. The confrontation with mortality and loss, moral development and ethical reasoning, and concerns about social justice and fairness, these represent enduring aspects of human existence that connect individual struggles with universal patterns of growth and meaning making. Thematic tensions and complexity. What elevates The Outsiders beyond a simple social problem novel is its embrace of thematic complexity and unresolved tensions. The novel presents opposing forces that create dynamic relationships rather than offering ideological simplification or moral certainty. Individual autonomy conflicts with group loyalty throughout as characters struggle to maintain personal integrity while meeting community expectations. This tension creates psychological complexity, exploring how personal development can occur within social relationships that both support and constrain individual growth. Social mobility aspirations contrast with community solidarity as characters face choices between personal advancement and group identification. The novel explores both positive and negative aspects of social advancement while maintaining respect for working class culture and community values. Ponyboy's academic success could lead him away from his brothers and friends, but the novel suggests possibilities for advancement that strengthen rather than sever community bonds. Violence as a defensive necessity opposes peaceful conflict resolution throughout the narrative. The work neither condemns nor endorses violence while exploring its psychological and social consequences. This ambiguity reflects realistic complexity. Sometimes violence may be necessary for survival, yet it always carries costs that extend beyond immediate circumstances. Economic equality ideals conflict with competitive social systems throughout the novel. The tension between meritocratic principles and social justice remains unresolved. The novel acknowledges that individual talent and effort matter, while recognizing that systematic barriers prevent equal opportunity. Some conflicts remain deliberately unresolved. Systematic economic inequality persists despite individual understanding and connection, suggesting that personal relationships, although valuable, cannot eliminate structural problems requiring institutional change. The cycle of violence continues despite tragic consequences, indicating that social conditions contributing to conflict require broader community intervention beyond individual moral development. The synthesis of opposing themes occurs through character development, demonstrating how apparent contradictions can coexist within complex individuals and social relationships. Individual autonomy and group loyalty achieve integration through Ponyboy's development, which enables personal growth within family and peer relationships while maintaining community connections that support rather than constrain authentic self-expression. As we conclude this examination of themes in The Outsiders, I hope you appreciate how Hinton weaves together multiple thematic strands to create a rich, complex exploration of fundamental human concerns. This isn't a novel with a single simple message. It's a sophisticated work that examines class conflict, family loyalty, violence, identity, and justice from multiple angles while acknowledging complexity and ambiguity. What makes these themes powerful is how they work together. Class conflict affects family stability, which influences individual identity formation, which shapes responses to violence, which impacts moral development. Everything connects. Hinton doesn't isolate these concerns, but shows how they intersect in lived experience. The themes matter because they address enduring questions about how we organize society, how we treat each other, and how we find meaning and connection in difficult circumstances. They mattered in 1967, and they matter today. Economic inequality persists. Youth violence continues. Families struggle under economic pressure. Young people search for identity and belonging. The specific circumstances change, but the fundamental human concerns remain. In our next episode, we'll examine the symbols and literary techniques Hinton uses to develop these themes, looking at recurring imagery like sunsets and Gone with the Wind, analyzing her use of first-person narration, and exploring how literary craft serves thematic purpose. Understanding these technical elements will deepen your appreciation of Hinton's artistry while providing tools for your own literary analysis. The Complete University Teaching Edition Study Guide for the Outsiders is available on Amazon with detailed theme charts, symbol analysis, discussion questions organized by theme, and essay prompts that help you explore these ideas in depth. Search University Teaching Edition to find our full catalog of literary study guides. Thanks for joining us on the Literary Deep Dive. Until next time, keep reading deeply.